Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Adventures of Brain Injury podcast. My name is Kevin Ballister. I'm a severe traumatic brain injury survivor, creator of adventuresinbraininjury.com, creator of feedabrain.com, author of How to Feed a Brain, and creator of the Feed a Brain interview series. With me is my co-host, Michelle Malmberg.
Well, hello, Kevin.
Well, hello there.
Great to be online with you again.
Fantastic. This episode is sponsored by Revive Treatment Centers in Denver, Colorado. It's a multidisciplinary neurorehabilitation clinic that specializes in traumatic brain injury, in autoimmunity, in neurological disorders, and much more. And I'm actually headed that way pretty soon. So that's pretty exciting.
It is very exciting. We'd like to hear how your progress is going and the support they are giving you. And we can ask our listeners at this very juncture about supporting the people who are affected by traumatic brain injuries, acquired brain injuries, and hope. Support with hope. And by tossing a couple of bucks into the pot on Patreon. Patreon.com/AIBI. And that helps to get our message out so that more people can spend time caring for themselves and their loved ones versus doing all the research that, let's face it, we've done a lot of, Kevin.
Mm-hmm. It's true. We study like our life depends on it.
Yes, aptly so. Yes.
So, and we are also looking for sponsors. So pre-roll and post-roll are available. Go to feedabrain.com or adventuresinbraininjury.com/support.
Excellent. And yes, we welcome your message to the TBI and ABI communities and the message of hope. And today, Kevin, we have a very serious and sincere message of hope from our guest on the 32nd adventure, Mr. Jerod Neider.
Yeah, tell me about Jerod.
Okay, well, I'm very pleased to introduce this young man from Lawrence, Kansas. He, in December of 2011, broke his neck, specifically his C5 vertebra, in a diving accident whilst in Mexico with his family. Instantly, he was paralyzed from the neck down and has spent nearly every day since then trying to regain function and striving for a better life. His family, his sister, his brother, all credit him with an incredible attitude from the start of his recovery. Mm-hmm. From developing his own hip replacement surgery, pretty cool, gotta ask about that, to seeking the best treatments for paralysis, he keeps overcoming the obstacles that land in front of him and pushing forward. He is an advocate of hard work, goal setting, and he is currently involved in the research at the University of Louisville in Kentucky and helps raise money to cure paralysis as a board member of the Walk On Foundation, which can be found at thewalkonfoundation.org. And Jerod volunteers as a tutor for the fifth to eighth grade. Let me get this American ease separated here. 5th to 8th graders, and enjoys spending time with his family and watching college basketball. Jerod can be reached via Facebook or through thewalkonfoundation.org.
Hey guys, welcome, thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. So I heard of Jerod through a client, and I looked him up and took a look at some of his videos, and I was like, my God, this guy has the best attitude I've ever seen. And I was just so impressed. Like nobody understands love and light like you radiate. And I found you on Facebook and I reached out and was just like, man, we would love to have you on. And your first reaction, you were like, well, it's actually not a brain injury. We're talking a spinal injury. I just want to make sure you're aware of that. And I'm like, I am absolutely aware of that. It changes absolutely nothing. I would love to have you on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate you reaching out, man.
Yeah.
I feel like I just, from the get-go, I realized the only thing that I could really control was my attitude. And it makes it easier on everybody that loves me and on myself if I just stay positive.
So Jerod, take us back to that day, that arrival. Your family arrived in Mexico for an annual Christmas vacation and a special family celebration. And just hours after arriving, things took a very different turn.
Yeah. My cousin was getting married, and we for quite a while we've just gone someplace warm for Christmas. My dad and I worked in construction, and it was a great break from the elements to go somewhere warm for Christmas every year. And we had just checked into the hotel after a long travel day. The sun was setting, and I have two sisters and a brother, and one of my sisters and my brother and I decided to go take a dip in the ocean real quick after we dropped our luggage off in our rooms after checking in. And you know, when you first get in the ocean, how, you know, sometimes it'll be a little cold, you know, it takes you a couple seconds to acclimate. And I remember just thinking, just dive right in, you know, just get that initial shock over with. And I sprinted down the beach as fast as I could and just plowed right into the water. And unbeknownst to me, there was a rock or a sandbar right underneath the surface. And I was instantly paralyzed and face down in the ocean with no way to get myself out of that situation.
Oh my gosh. I'm shivering here.
Face down in the ocean.
Yes.
Like underwater.
Yeah, the waves. I remember, you know, the waves of the ocean just kind of brushing my face up against the sandbar or whatever I had just hit, and I was unable to move anything. And I've talked to a lot of patients in my similar situation, and it's weird, kind of the awareness you have of what happened immediately. It's like I knew I broke my neck, and I knew I was paralyzed.
Wow.
There was no sense of worry. It was very calm. I just was like, you know, you better hold your breath, and hopefully, you know, your brother or sister sees what's going on and can bail you out. And I blacked out before, I don't remember, but my brother said he came over and, you know, thought I was joking around or something, but he picked me up, and I just said "in trouble." And he actually has worked as a lifeguard, so he knew how to safely drag me to the beach and stabilize my neck. And then they went and grabbed the rest of my family.
You know what this reminds me of is Dr. Daniel Engel, who we interviewed on the interview series, and on, what was it, the 29th episode, I believe, who also had a C5 injury. I believe in Mexico is where he got it from, diving into a sandbar. And
wow.
He was just amazingly lucky. He actually went to medical school wearing a halo and was able to recover an enormous amount of function. But I was thinking about that, and thinking what he talks about is, he calls it the cracking of the cosmic egg.
Yes.
Which is essentially that moment where you realize the only thing that you're in control of is your thoughts and your reaction. And the only, and what truly matters is the love and the people around you, which I feel like you just really radiate and get that. I mean, you had to understand that immediately.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm blessed with the most supportive, loving, helpful family that a guy could have. And from you know, my brother pulling me out of the water to the support both my sisters and my brother, my parents have given me all along the way. Numerous other family members and friends in my hometown. It's just as hard as life can be sometimes, there really is a lot of beauty in how great people can be. And I'm just really grateful and thankful for that.
Let's talk about your situation soon after what happened. That because I want to paint a picture, where you were, as far as your abilities go after your injury. I'm assuming at one point, like you get out of the hospital, you're in a wheelchair, and could you describe what your state was at that point?
You bet. Well, initially, if my nose itched, I had to have somebody scratch it. I needed to be fed. I needed help with everything. I needed, they use one of those big, electric lifts to hoist me out of bed and into my wheelchair. And I was completely dependent on other people for everything. And then after a few months, I slowly got to where I could feed myself. It wasn't always pretty, but I was able to get it done. And then, it took 3 years before I got strong enough to where I could, transfer myself out of my wheelchair into bed. It took 5.5 years to make a transition into a manual wheelchair, which I've done. I did that at the end of September. It's just.
So you have regained enough strength and abilities in your upper extremities to operate a manual wheelchair.
Yeah, and that's really that's huge for things like. I'm going home for Christmas, and for the first time, I'm going to fly by myself. And when I get home, I won't need a wheelchair accessible vehicle because I'm in this collapsible manual chair, and I can transfer myself into the front seat of a normal vehicle and throw it in the back instead of lugging around a 500-pound power chair that needs, a special vehicle to take me around in, so it's really opening up a lot of independence and freedom in my life the more that I progress and work through these challenges.
So, Jerod, I need to ask a question here. Do you have some down days? Do you have regrets? Do you wish things had turned out differently? Do you have feelings about what plans you may have had that have been radically altered?
My mom used to say, if you want to make God laugh, tell him you're playing.
Yes.
Nobody really has control over their life. I mean, obviously this is not what I would have picked, but you got to play the cards you're dealt. And sure we all have bad days, but I really try not to, because I feel like that I'm scared of that, I don't want to let those negative thoughts overcome me. And while sure they do come into my head every once in a while, I try to just push them out immediately, just knowing that there's no future in that. There's no future in what if or having regrets. I mean, there's no time machine. I can't change the past. All I can change is now and moving forward. And I try to focus on that.
And was that the way you always lived your life, Jerod? Or is that just the attitude you took on once you realized I need help and now?
I wouldn't say that was always the attitude. I've always been a very, hard worker, very stubborn, which has served me well with this injury. But maybe Kevin can speak to this a little bit, but when you have a life-altering event like this happen, you have to dig down into something maybe you've never accessed before to get through your life. And I definitely had never been challenged like this before, but I feel like I'm doing my best to rise to that challenge.
Yeah, speaking of, I'm thinking back to when I was in a place where, the fact is, when you want to move something and you're like telling your hand to move and it doesn't, it's frustrating. It's very frustrating. And you get in this place where it's like, well, this sucks. My life is over. And this is my experience, which really, which is like baby compared to yours, but when you're in that place, you're like, this sucks. And it's like, you know what? I'm on this ride either way. I can go on it kicking and screaming, or I can recognize that this is an adventure, and change your perspective. And that's where Adventures in Brain Injury was born, and where this entire journey has started. And that's exactly what you're speaking to, is that what you can control is your thoughts and your reaction to your circumstances.
For sure. Yeah. And it's not always easy. It's always a work in progress, but you stay at it, and life can be better than maybe you thought it would be.
Yes. There is definitely strength in moving through that challenge, and maybe not through, just into that challenge, because it's not like the challenge ends. And, very briefly, Jerod, I ended up with 2 acquired brain injuries. I didn't know exactly how they were categorized, but my friend Kevin updated me on all the different categories. And at the time, I had a 3-year-old boy, a brain tumor. I was in a coma, and a 1% survival estimate. And how was I going to care for this child and get through? I mean, there's a bit of a daze. Okay, there's a lot of a daze. For me, it was getting through the first 2 weeks post-op. And then, I had, for myself, my own experience was I came out of that surgery with a lot of anger. I had to deal with a lot of anger. It took me a long time to figure out how to do it. I was really on my own a lot. The family had no idea really what to do other than sort of stand back and let me have some space, keep things quiet. And it was a very, very strange place and to be, because with a frontal lobe brain tumor, which was my first brain injury, a lot of times people experience personality changes. So it was very strange for me to walk into a room or into a clinic, and people who knew me before the brain tumor would kind of stand back, take a look at me. Hello, Michelle. It's me, and so I felt like I was in, at times, a completely different world. And it was a very strange experience to come through that and let other people know, hey, it's me.
Absolutely. Like, I think just as hard as it is adjusting to like the injury and being in a wheelchair, like a big part of that is adjusting to how the whole world perceives you differently now than they did before you were injured. And, one of my pet peeves is I'm so short in my wheelchair. How many people will like come up to me and pet me on the head? Like,
oh, how interesting. Okay.
It's so condescending. I mean, but you also got to remember that they mean well. They just, how the whole world perceives you and treats you differently once you're in a chair is something that takes a while to wrap your mind around.
Can I just say something? You're a badass, Jerod. Like, straight up, that's awesome. And I really look, and tis the season, because here's the deal. My New Year's resolution has been the same for the past, 7-8 years, something like that, or more. And that has been to be more badass than I was the year before.
That's a great goal.
Right? My definition of what a badass is totally evolved. And
sure.
And looking at you, like, you are totally a badass. And I'm so impressed by the power you have harnessed over your thoughts. Because as you've said, that's what we can control. And I think that right there is one of the most powerful aspects any human can possess, is the ability to control their thoughts and the ability to choose to put their attention in a certain place, So So yeah, happy holidays, and I'm so glad you're going home and seeing your family. So you live in Kentucky right now, and your
Correct.
family is in Kansas.
Yes,
So
550 miles away.
right. So do you live on your own in Kentucky?
I do. I have an apartment down here, but I also have caregivers that come in the morning and the evening, just to help out with a few aspects of my daily life. You know, I can transfer myself, but then sometimes I need some help moving things around. And so, I mean, there are some things I need help with, but for the most part, I get through the day by myself.
Nice. Nice. And the reason you're in Kentucky, let's talk about that.
Yeah. So, well, actually, when I was, so my hips dislocated when I was first injured. They tell you when you get a spinal cord injury that any health problem you might have 40, 50 years down the road could present itself much earlier. And I ended up having a problem with my hips where they dislocated. And in my search to find an answer for that, I was at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester. And there happened to be a symposium on neurological care. Neuro doctors were there giving speeches. And, you know, me and my mom, she was the one that had taken me up there, and we decided to check out the speech by several doctors on the cutting edge of what was going on in neuro recovery and neuroplasticity. And we listened to Dr. Harkema talk about epidural stimulation and activity-based therapy and functional electrical stimulation and all these things that were possible for spinal cord injury. And it's like I knew right away that's what I wanted to do. And she runs her clinic out of the University of Louisville Frazier Hospital down here. And I followed her down here to participate in her therapy program and research.
Awesome. So you're down there doing research. They're researching and looking for novel ways to repair spinal cord injuries.
Yeah, you know, when you have a spinal cord injury, you know, there's no real way to tell exactly how severe it is unless they do an autopsy. So one thing that they've told me down here is that, you know, we know that you can't walk, but we don't know how close to walking you are. Like, are we just right there, or you know, is there so much damage? And she believes that as long as the spinal cord is not severed, that if there's some connectivity there where your spinal cord is damaged, then that the nervous system is so plastic that they're finding ways to modulate that and retrain the system to work, and they're getting results that, you know, that were previously thought impossible.
Oh, wow. Inspiring.
So
yeah, it's really cool what's going on.
So this is something that I want to talk about is neuroplasticity and brain, spinal cord. Like actually, I was super surprised when I was introduced to functional neurology. I'm like, wait, I'm going to see a chiropractor?
Yeah.
What are they going to do? Crack my back and fix my brain? It's like, you know, when you think of it, the central nervous system is the brain and the spine. And I think of it like your brain is the puppet master. Your spine is the strings that affect everything else. And I mean, yeah, like you said, if you cut those strings, you're not moving those puppets, you know?
Right.
And so, but the neuroplasticity is pretty amazing how we can build connections between. And that's really exciting that that's happening.
Yeah, I mean, concepts like bridging, you know, even if there's not connectivity, how these like spinal cord synapses can bridge gaps where they're injured, and then how they can retrain, like, you know, nerves that used to carry, you know, maybe one signal for some part of the body can carry multiple signals and do multiple things.
Yes.
the traditional thought that every thought process actually takes place in our brain, when they believe that there's a central pattern generator in part of your spine, and how all there's like memory cells in all your nerves, and not just muscle memory, but actual maybe thought process can take place in other places than in your brain. It's crazy, all the stuff they're learning.
Phenomenal. Oh.
Yeah.
Well, and combine that with your attitude and determination, I think we're going to see some impressive results, Jerod.
I hope so. I think it's already, better than what a lot of people thought it would be. And with the stuff they've been doing down here lately, there's a guy that has a similar injury to me that's able to stand and take steps. I mean, he still needs a wheelchair for everyday life, but we're figuring out ways to modulate the nervous system and bring recovery that was impossible several years ago.
Right.
That's amazing. And I'm glad you brought up central pattern generation.
Yes. Let's get
I learned about central pattern generators and how that works in a physiology class I started taking after my injury.
Which one was that?
Well, after my brain injury, I began to study, like my life depended on it. And I learned about Coursera.org, which basically is top is courses from top university like Duke and Princeton and Yale and Cal Polytech and University of Chicago. And I think I was taking a physiology course from Duke and learning about central pattern generators, which essentially, do you want to explain what central pattern generators are?
From my understanding, it's just like in the lower lumbar sacral spine, there's what they've told me is a central pattern generator, and like the brain will send like a generalized walking signal to the central pattern generator, and then that central pattern generator handles the actual ambulation and stuff like that.
So my understanding is basically the neuronal networks that need to make something happen efficiently get built into the plasticity over time. And so we don't even need the signal to go to the brain and then the brain to be like, do this. I mean, the brain is like, yeah, do that thing you always do that you've already figured out how to do and built all the things. Like, that's it. So it's like not sending a bunch of complex instructions. Now it's just sending like, flip this switch,
Yeah.
And then
green lighting the walking process. Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And I was actually interviewing Keith Norris from PaleoFX for the interview series recently. And he brought up he loves this quote from Archilochus, and he says, "We do not rise to our expectations; we fall to our training." And I was commenting on that because it's brain plasticity, it's neuronal plasticity, I think I should say, because as we're talking about right now, it goes beyond brain. Spine, whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
So neuronal plasticity is that we don't rise to the expectations. We fall to our training, and our training creates these central patterns that are just turned on and go. It's autopilot. So I love that you brought that up.
Yeah, I think we both understand kind of delving into the research of your issue. When there's things you can't control, one thing you can control is the knowledge that you soak up. And I feel like there's kind of some solstice in educating yourself about your injury when there's so much out of your hands.
Interesting choice of word. Dove into the research, literally.
I didn't want to bring that up, but
Hey.
Yes,
hey, I fell into this. You dove into it. We all get here somewhere.
Oh my gosh! I guess falling into a coma counts too, hey?
Yeah, absolutely.
I seized my way into it. Oh my gosh! So I need to seize the moment. Yes, That's right. So,
go ahead, Michelle.
well, I just, the excuse me, Jerod used the term education, and I can't help but thinking about Jerod's time volunteering with the 5th through 8th graders. And Jerod, you're not just teaching the curriculum that's presented to you. What is your time like with those children?
So the kids that I work with struggle with reading and comprehension, and what we're teaching them is what's called growth mindset, and kind of the old thought was that, you know, maybe you're not good at reading or you're not good at math, and what we try to teach them is that that's just letting you know what you need to work on, and then you can be good at whatever you focus on. And so I think, you know, they can relate to me because they have their struggles in reading or, you know, whatever subject in school. And I can relate it to my struggles being in a wheelchair, but how if I work at it, I can improve what I'm doing. And it's the same for them. And it's the same for everybody, you know, whatever your deficits are, that's not the way it has to be. If you work on it, it can be better.
Yes.
So wait, this is growth mindset. Is that what you said?
Yes, that's what they call it.
That's fantastic. We talk quite a bit about post-traumatic growth, you know, versus post-traumatic stress, where you take a traumatic experience and you build from it. And that's perfect. Growth mindset, post-traumatic growth entirely.
Yeah. Yes, that's terrific. Well, and honestly, Jerod, to have you know, a reading deficit is not something visible, but the wheelchair is clearly obvious to these children. And so the example that you're setting and the attitude with which you carry yourself through that school is surely an example to them. I teach my boy, I've been asking him all his life, I've just gently been seeding his thoughts, lead by example. And, you know, so-and-so's not doing this, so-and-so's not doing that. I said, so then what will you do? Lead by example. And you are just, I mean, in my mind, I haven't met you yet in person, but just an iconic example of leading by example. So I thank you in advance.
Thank you very much. I'm lucky that I have the support that I do, and I'm able to focus on the things that I do, you know? So, you know, it's not just me. No matter what's going on, it takes a team, you know?
It does, doesn't it? It really does. Yes. And how gracious of you to acknowledge that. And I think you're part of many other people's teams. So there's not just a team supporting you, but you're supporting many other teams.
Yeah. You know, after being injured for a few years, it's a real guilty feeling having everything focused on yourself. You know, my whole family was focused on how can they get me to therapy and how can they help me with my daily life. And everybody's helping me, and therapists are spending days all day with me, you know, helping me do things. And it gets old. You want to give back. You want to feel like there's some balance, you know, and I feel like working with the kids has really afforded me that. And I'm grateful that they allow me to help them out.
Oh, terrific. Kevin, you wanted to jump in.
Yes. Oh man, there's so much to this. Like, I love that we talked about your support system and how powerful your support system is. And in fact, that is one of the greatest predictors of a successful outcome is the support system.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And I think, you know, what that involves is what you're talking about, like controlling your thoughts, changing your perspective, and and choosing your reaction towards things. And then for my own experience, there was a point in my hospitalization where I was like, you know, again, I was like, this sucks, right? And we talk a lot about finding purpose and finding meaning things. And really there wasn't meaning or purpose in the beginning for me. But my friends and family, my support system gave me a purpose, gave me a reason to fight like hell. You know, at first
Absolutely.
I wasn't doing it for me. I was doing it for them. And then, yeah, it's that sort of selfish feeling like Jesus, first of all, God, I love you all for being there for me. Like, I am so grateful for the support system I had, and I can tell you're in the exact same place, and you're like, well, now I want to give back, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And so you talked about this hip replacement surgery that you played a part in developing.
Yeah, that was kind of a crazy story. So my hips started dislocating very, very soon after my spinal cord injury. You know, with the I had a lot of muscle laxity, obviously, from my chest down, and
Yes.
Could you just, what's muscle laxity?
Just flaccid muscles that aren't properly innervated. Yeah.
And let me define innervation is having the neuron connect to the next neuron or the muscular junction. So basically, your brain being able to control whatever, or your spine being able to control to affect the muscle.
Correct.
So connectivity.
Basically, that's it. And then I also have a lot of spasticity, and that's muscles that are inappropriately innervated, and you know, they clench up, pulling my knees together. But I didn't have the tone on the outside of my legs and hips to keep those hips where they were supposed to be when that was happening. And just over several months, it dislocated my hips and wore the femoral head down.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it got. Like, I discharged from Craig Hospital, which is a world-renowned spinal cord injury hospital in Denver.
Yes.
And they actually discharged me to a learning hospital, which I went to the University of Kansas because it was close to home, and my sister was about ready to give birth, and I thought our family needed to be together. But I went there to have them try to figure out what was wrong with why this was happening specifically to my hips. I mean, it ended up being that they were kind of not formed perfectly from birth. It was something that I never would have been an issue, but when you have a neurological deficit like I have, you know, these problems come to the surface very quick.
Okay.
So being the fact that I was a high level quadriplegic, meaning, you know, it's injuries way up top, no doctor really saw any value in my legs. You know, I had a doctor straight up tell me, he's like, you can't walk. Why do you want me to fix your hips?
Wow.
Yes.
You know, and it's not just the hope that I had for the future of preserving my body as best I can and staying in as best shape as I could, but also, like, if the options they gave me to fix my dislocating hips was a femoral resection, which is where they just cut the bone off down the thigh a little bit so the bone doesn't rub on the hip socket and doesn't degrade that away, and it doesn't really cause you any problems. But then you're sitting right on your sacrum, and you can have, you know, pressure sores are much more of an issue. And then obviously things that, like, there's a stimulation bike that I ride that helps preserve tone in my legs. That wouldn't have been possible. The standing therapy that I do would not have been possible with a femoral resection. And then the other surgery option they gave me was what's called a girdle stone, where they fuse the hip either at 90 degrees or straight. So my hips would either always be in a standing or always in a sitting position for the rest of my life. And I actually thought it was pretty insulting, the options that they gave me.
Indeed. I'm glad to hear you use that word, because my mouth is agape.
Yeah. And you know, I had doctors tell me that I wasn't a candidate for hip replacement surgery because I would die. The surgery would kill me, that I was too weak, that it wasn't if it failed, it was when it failed. And it wasn't if I was going to get an infection, it was when would I get an infection? And, you know, all these real doom and gloom. And I had only, throughout our research, my whole family was working on this, and we found these doctors in Germany that had done hip replacements on quadriplegics and paraplegics. And we were looking at going there when my sister found Dr. Paymont at Cedars-Sinai in Beverly Hills.
Okay.
And he agreed to see me, and ultimately ended up doing my surgery. And he designed the surgery, did my left hip and then my right hip. And then, like so many doctors had said, my spasticity pulled the left hip out and the surgery failed.
Okay.
And then, so the doctor came and was like, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to cut these tendons in your groin that are pulling your knees together to dislocate this. We'll dislocate, or we'll sever those tendons. Then the spasticity won't pull on it. And the next revision should take and work all right. And I was like, Doc, my whole goal in everything is preserving what I have left as best I can, and permanently disabling tendons is not congruent with that goal.
Good for you.
I said, how about, what if we deaden the muscle with Botox, and that will stop the muscle from innervating, from having the spasticity. And then as the Botox wears off, once that slowly starts coming back on, that'll actually increase the blood flow and help with osseointegration of the hardware.
Huh.
And he kind of looked at me for a second, and he picked up his phone and called a doctor that specializes in Botox for kids with CP a lot, to help release their tremors in their necks and stuff like that. But
yes.
But he called the doctor right in front of me. Me and my dad were sitting there in the hospital, and he called the doctor, and he just looked at me. He goes, "We'll do it your way." It was such a surreal moment,
Wow.
Me and my dad, a couple of Kansas construction workers telling this
Great.
Harvard trained doctor how they're going to do my hip surgery. It was crazy. But I'm
Well-
fortunate to have such a great doctor that was able to listen to me and consider what, I love that man. Like, none of this would be possible without him listening to me and doing what he can to help me out. So I'm just very grateful that my sister found him and that he agreed to let me be his patient.
Well, it's a family construction business, this time on the human body.
Right, yeah.
I appreciate that so much. And I mean, we talk about arrogance in medicine versus curiosity, and these phases of medicine coming to a phase where the patient is educated as hell, again, studying like their life depends on it. And the doctor is really educated because he went to school, or she went to school for however long, and has a whole skill set to bring to the table. And them coming together where they both respect each other's training. It's not, Dr. Julia Pauly said, it's not an MD-ity up there like telling them what to do.
I like that term.
Oh my gosh.
Isn't that good? And
Yes.
it is where you can build a therapeutic partnership for a common goal, for you to get as well as you possibly can. You want that, the doctor wants that. So that's the next phase of medicine that we're moving into. And I love to hear that he was like, yeah, that could totally work. And
Kevin, it was you who introduced me to Dr. Eric Topol, and he doesn't even put doctor on his authorship on the front page of his books, but the patient will see you now.
Yes, the patient will see you now.
I checked that book out from the library, and when I was going to a number of medical appointments, I took that book with me. I didn't have to say anything. I just kept it on my lap. I strategically placed it on the table. I just wanted the doctors to see the title.
That's
That's
amazing.
all that needed to be said. I would do the same thing with Dr. Karazian's book, Why Isn't My Brain Working? I would go to my journal club meetings. I'm the only non-medical student or non-physician in our Humanities in Healthcare Journal Club up at the medical center. And well, I guess I am in a sense because I'm studying with the Institute for Functional Medicine. However, everybody thinks I'm working on a thesis, and I just always take in another interesting book and I put it on the table in front of me. Just, these alternative books, just seeding, just sowing seeds. Every meeting we have. Yeah, it really is. The paradigm is shifting, and this allopathic pharmaceutical solutions is quickly coming to an end because people want and need and now can reach out for much more. I mean, just look at the network here and the connections we've made, the three of us right here, and Kevin doing his work, me being in touch with him, and us being in touch with Jerod. And I just really believe these next few years are going to have tremendous change. And Jerod, your human construction business, I see great things in your future.
Well, thank you very much. I do think it's important. I think the old school of thought was, kind of that, you said M-deity earlier, and it was that doctors are God. And for sure, some of them bought into it, and the general public did as well.
Yes.
And I think, you can't, what they say is not the gospel. I mean, there's some very caring, smart, educated doctors out there, but it's just a person, and they're
Yes.
fallible, and what they come up with might not be right for you. And it's important to be an advocate and to know what's right for yourself. And if your doctor, what your doctor's saying doesn't sit right with you, then seek other answers.
Well, and if you hadn't done that, Jerod, let's be clear, you would not be at Kentucky One Health Fraser Rehab Institute because you wouldn't be able to walk if your tendons were cut.
Yeah, if I had just a femoral resection or tendons cut or any of these other options that were given to me, I wouldn't be a research candidate. That would automatically exclude me from everything that I've been doing. And even if the research I'm participating in doesn't directly, lead to me walking or drastically change my life, it's pushing the knowledge forward and just participating and that satisfaction.
Yes.
Is good for me,
Oh, yes. Well, and for the rest of us, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, truly. Yeah. I mean, your life is, your life is now dedicated to not building and constructing on a physical, civil or residential commercial sense, but I mean, really look at the construction you're doing now in human sciences. Phenomenal.
Yeah,
Phenomenal.
It's crazy where life takes you.
Yes.
I mean, Jerod, when I heard of you and I began watching some videos, I was just like, this man has a very rich life. and he knows it. And,
yes.
And it was just it was so beautiful. And that's why I reached out and I was like, Jerod, I really, really like your style. So I'm going to stick with that. This has been such a fantastic conversation. And I thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. It was
no problem.
Seriously like the love and the light, the strength and serenity and the rock and roll that you exude. You got it going on, brother.
You've inspired me. Oh, yes, it is a great compliment. And you too. And yes, just listening to your badass conversations. Like, hey, I want a little bit of this action. I'm feeling like my New Year's resolution, I'm going to be more of a badass Canadian woman, and watch out, world.
Go get it.
I think I just might. Yes. Well, and Calvin, let's have our listeners know that all they need to do is type in Jerod's full name and on YouTube. There are a number of inspiring videos there, so we can catch a glimpse of what he's up to and how things are progressing. And we'll expect more than Jerod from the Kentucky One Health Fraser Rehab Institute. Surely you'll be posting some of your work there online for us to see.
I sure will.
Oh, right. Terrific. Thank you once again for taking your time this morning to speak with us.
No problem. This was fun. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah, well, we'll keep in touch. Thank you.
All right. Have a good week.
Adios, y'all.
Bye. Wow, what an inspirational young man. I'm overwhelmed, and I'm so inspired to become a better badass, Kevin.
I told you you dig this one.
You're right. I totally dig him. That's, yeah. He's what a great attitude. Such an inspiration. And those children he volunteers for, just to have a living example, to feel that energy when he comes in to tutor them. Wow, what a gift. Just what a gift.
Yeah, I hope our audience gets to learn more about this inspiring man. I mean, just when I heard about him and looked him up, I was like,
You can just see the smile on his face.
Yeah, that smile
in his eye
radiates.
Yeah, it's so sincere.
It is so sincere.
You know, years ago, when I was recovering from my second brain injury, the adult onset pandas, I was reading a book looking for inspiration. It's called Upside. And this is one of the stories that belongs in Upside Volume 2. The New Science of Post-Traumatic Growth is the subtitle on it. The author is Jim Rendon, and he's a journalist who interviewed a number of people who had injuries or accidents, and it changed their life forever. And a couple of them, like with Jerod's case, a couple of these individuals ended up wheelchair bound, unable to walk, and their futures completely altered. I love what Jerod's mom said, well, if you want to make God laugh.
There
you go. That's what I was looking for. And that made me smile because I was just at a workshop, a personal development workshop, and the director, that's what he said to one of the participants. So I had to laugh hearing that yet again. And it's so true, but we always think we want to be in control of our lives and make our 5-year plan. And in an instant, that can be rewritten. And so I really
I like to orient myself towards intentions of what I'm trying to do. But not necessarily the plan. It's always in flux,
Yes. Well, and God may have other directions for you. So be open to the fork in the road. And I just think Jerod's really just embraced the moment, really present, and honestly, inspirational. Just inspirational.
It was amazing.
You were right. Yeah.
So y'all like check out Jerod's stuff. He's just an amazing guy.
Yeah, and his work with the Walk On Foundation. .org.
We'll put that in the show notes. We'll put that book in the show notes, and
the doctors he mentioned.
Yeah.
So
I do want to say one more time. If you missed the interview series, head over to feedabrain.com/VIP, because y'all are on my VIP list if you listen to my podcast.
Thank you for listening.
And so on there you can get the entire series, an audio and video, plus the slides that go along with it, plus the transcripts, plus a digital copy of my book, plus all the handouts that go with the book. And it's over, what is it? I think it's 12 handouts that are really helpful to implement the information that you get from it. So all that for you guys for $49.
Yeah, that's very generous.
Feedthebrain.com/VIP.
Wonderful. Okay. We've got places to go, things to do, VIP access to access. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you. Oh, and also there's a couple free videos there that you can check out.
Oh, more than a couple.
Taste of what's going on.
Yeah, more than a couple. Enjoy it. They're great. Great information. Okay, have a great day.
All right, you too, Michelle.
Bye, Kevin.
Bye.
Someone take me to a doctor, just take away this curse. Someone take me to a doctor.